Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Iferia, and today's guest is Helene Gidley, an Agile coach with over 40 years of experience in the IT industry. But despite her professional expertise in organizing complex technical projects, she found herself privately struggling with an ever growing personal to do list where nothing seemed to work. She's here to share how she stopped letting traditional productivity methods fail her and instead adapted the agile framework to real life, turning chaos into clarity. So, Helen, it's
Mhm.
a pleasure to welcome you to Fieldcraft. Thank you very much for joining us.
And thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you here. So, let's dive in, Helen. You spent decades managing high level IT projects, yet you admit that for a long time, your personal systems for getting things done were failing you. So, you mentioned trying various methods for years and realizing nothing seemed to really work. So, can you take us back to the peak of that frustration? Was there a specific moment, perhaps a weekend, where the to-do lists felt insurmountable, where you realized that the traditional way of managing life was actually broken and you needed to look at your work for the answer?
Absolutely. Be happy to share that. Certainly, it was over 10 years ago, working as a project manager for a large pharmaceutical corporation. And this was really where my own project manager work I was having trouble getting all of those pieces done. It is not uncommon for project managers in the IT arena to be running more than one project at a time. And I was using a version of the Agile methods to help my team manage their work. And I was struggling with my work, with the multiple projects and the deadlines and the milestones and trying to get everything organized despite what I feel I have very good organizational skills in general. But I found that I was ending days not getting everything done, and I was having to spend extra time trying to get the work, the reports, the tasks completed. And that's not where I wanted to be, right? None of us want to have to spend more time than we need to allocate at a job to get the basics done. I felt like there had to be a better way. And here I am using these wonderful agile techniques for my team and teams to help them manage their work. And that was kind of the light bulb of, well, if it works for them, why won't it work for my tasks? And as I was mulling that over, we had another project manager join that was also trained in the Agile frameworks. And the two of us started talking about it. And we decided, well, let's try using the Agile methods to manage our own work. And a big part of that is just breaking our work into something smaller and making it more visible. So that was really the beginning of doing things a little bit differently and beginning to take my work and say, this is the same as my team's project work. Let's make sure I have it clearly identified. I know what done means for a particular task. It's small enough that I can get it done and schedule it within the day and begin to get a better handle on my work. And that was really the beginning of it. It was, gee, my teams could do it. Why doesn't it work for our own work? And that took it beyond my work, things that I was doing for the employer at the job. Then I started realizing, well, I have a lot of other tasks too, right? We all live a complex lives. We have a lot of other jobs and things that we need to do. Maybe we're doing volunteer work. We're working at other organizations perhaps, and we have other tasks that we need to get done within our day. So that's where I started to put in the two pieces together, and that was really the light bulb for getting things done in a much better way.
All right. Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Helene. So,
Mhm.
we often blame ourselves when a productivity system fails. We think we are lazy or undisciplined. So, how did it take you to realize that you weren't the failure, but the method was.
Yes, exactly. And I will credit Agile for that one more time because one of the key practices within the Agile methods is to have what we call a retrospective. And for in Agile, it's at the end of a defined period where the team is doing their work and they will review at the end of this, let's say it's a 2-week period, they will review what they got done, what they didn't, and understand why they didn't get the things done that were on the list and to review and see what can we do better, right? Have a retro and introspective on what worked, what didn't work, what can we do better?
Mm,
Well, so I took that same piece and applied it to my method and realized again, the it's not that I am deficient, that I'm unable to get my work done. I realized it was the practices because the moment I started using the agile methods and I started implying the retrospective on a daily basis now for my tasks, and I would ask myself, well, I see I had 5 or 10 things that I wanted to get done today, and there were maybe 2 or 3 that didn't get done. Why? And I applied that same retrospective. What was it about those tasks that I couldn't get them done? What could I have done better? What worked really well today? Right? And what should I keep doing more of and what can I change? And that's that whole recognizing it was the process that was failing me, not me. Right? And I think that's
mm.
an important piece to recognize as we all try to manage the the enormity of tasks that are calling for our attention on a regular basis that I think we just live in a more complex world and we really have to understand that it's not us that's deficient. It's very often the method that we're using that is failing us. So I
All right.
applaud your question so people stop beating themselves up over not getting things done because that
Mm.
really is critical. You should not feel bad. You should learn from it, right? And what can we do better? And that's a far healthier approach.
Great, great. Thank you for
Yeah.
saying that. So, Helene, you mentioned a holiday gathering story on your profile as a turning point. So, holidays are notorious for stress and plans falling apart in certain cases. So, how did applying an agile mindset to a family dinner save you from a meltdown?
Oh, yes. And, I was at a conference. Let me go back to the history of where I decided to use it. I was at an Agile conference and someone was up talking about their method and they had given it a kind of funny name that we were playing with of finding ways of helping our teams get a better flow of work through their systems.
Mm,
And she was started with a little story about, oh, and here's something that I did that I do on occasion, and it was a way of managing their family events. That she had a very detailed board on a kitchen cabinet of what things had to go in the oven at what time so she could maximize the oven and make sure everything got done on schedule. Very, very geeky, very engineer oriented. But I'm looking at what she's doing, and the light bulb went off when I went, I have that problem when there's a big family event and I'm hosting and I'm sure many people listening, at one point or another in your lives, you'll have a big event that you are hosting, and everybody comes to the house or comes to your place, and almost universally, the first question most people will ask is, "What can I do to help?" And what do we do as hosts? Almost always universally answer, "Nothing. I've got this all covered. You just go ahead and sit down." And you don't have it all covered, right? You're running around trying to get so much done that you really, you feel overwhelmed. And it was at that conference when I saw this young woman, how she had everything laid out on the board. And I went, that's the problem I have. Well, what if I did the same thing and kind of a similar, a twist on it? What if, let's say I'm having an engagement party, right? That's my son and both my boys are now married, but I've had engagement parties at the house. So we're having an engagement party. Well, I've got a lot of people coming over. There's an awful lot to do to prep the house, get food and meals and drinks and decorations and everything ready. And certainly the person for whom the engagement party is in honor of are coming and coming early. So the first thing I started to do was take all that bits of work that I had and I start putting them on sticky notes and I put them up on the wall. And I had them in 3 columns: to-do column, doing column, and a done column. And I would make them small enough, like get extra chairs up from the basement. Fork, put all utensils into little cups and on the table. Set the table. Get this particular food out. Arrange an appetizer tray, right? You can start to think of all of those little things that you need to do. I put them up on the wall. And lo and behold, as I expected, as the first few people started to come and as my children appeared and, a number of family members were there and they asked, well, what can we do to help? I pointed to the board and everybody starts grabbing a sticky and doing it. And they put it in the doing column so everyone knows what they're working on. And when they're done, they move it to the done column, which is a wonderful dopamine hit of like, I got something done. I'm helping to make this event successful. And before you knew it, everything from the to-do column was either in doing or done. And we were ready for the event. And I use that now for family meals, birthday parties, holiday events, regardless of where you live and what the holiday is. I've used that every time, and it has been a very successful approach. So much so that I have my one daughter-in-law had a birthday party for her daughter, my granddaughter, who just turned 1, and she had 20 people coming over. And what did I see on her wall when I arrived at her house? A whole list of stickies on what we call this board, the Kanban board, a to-do column, a doing column, and a done column. And those of us who arrived early, we just dove into all the tasks. And in time for the party, everything was done. So, and it translated and transferred over to now my daughter-in-law is using it for events. And we realize that it reduces that stress dramatically. Stop saying, I have to do everything. Allow yourself to give up a little bit, put them all up, put how you want it done or what you need done on a little note and let people help. And it was such an eye-opener for me that first time that I did it, that it reduced the stress and it became fun, right? Everybody was helping. Everybody just dove in and helped and moved around and I got to enjoy the event as the
Mm,
host. And so often, that's what we feel, that we love having people over, but it's so overwhelming that you don't always get to enjoy it nearly as much as you would like. So this was my way of taking these wonderful techniques and allowing myself to enjoy these events as well as, be the host of them.
great. Thank you very much for sharing that amazing story with us. So, Helene, procrastination is often a symptom of overwhelm. So, how does your method tackle the fear of starting, which is where so many people feel?
Exactly. And I heard this from my husband a lot before I convinced him to start using the method. That is, the tasks feel too big. Maybe it's something like I need to clean the house or I need to clean the garage or, think of, a large project that you're doing at work. And often we will put it on our task lists, you know, clean garage, clean the house, start, project X. And you realize it's a very large piece and you have trouble figuring out where to get started. And the task itself being that large doesn't lend itself for you to even know when you're done. Um, I'll relate on a smaller sense. I was trying to look for a birthday present for that 1-year-old or a Christmas present for her. I had written the task as, find a present for her. And I had in mind something that I'm looking for, a little play kitchen for her. And I found myself spending an hour scrolling online, trying to find like the perfect thing. And I never got anywhere, right? I had just spent that hour and hadn't gotten anywhere. And the moment I broke it down into something smaller of spend 20 minutes looking for a play kitchen, identify 3 that you like. The moment I broke it down into something smaller, I could now schedule it into my day, fit it into my day. I'm giving myself a time limit of 20 minutes. I actually can get it accomplished. And that's where I get over that procrastination hump. When things are smaller, you can look at that and say, oh yeah, I look at that. I could have 15 or 20 minutes. I could do that now. And that's how you can get over this. Everything feels so big. I don't know how to ever get started. And oh my gosh, it's going to take forever to get this done. And I just don't have the time today. Well, if you break it down into smaller bits, you find that you do have time today to do a little bit of it. And then a little bit the next day, and a little bit the next time you come in. And that's how you get over that procrastination piece. And so that's where I blame a lot of our methods that don't encourage us to break things down into smaller chunks. So I break things down into small chunks and I estimate them. How long would it take me to do this task working uninterrupted on my own? Right. And
Mm.
that's really the key. Uninterrupted on my own. How long would this take? For many of us, 30 minutes, an hour might be your max that you can truly work uninterrupted on your own. We have such interrupt-driven societies and lives. So I start taking my bits of work and say, let's make it fit into where I can truly do the work. And that's not something I hear a lot of in the time management and productivity tools and techniques that are out there. And that's where I think mine really helps you get over that procrastination hump because
Mm.
I now see how to get started. I can do little bits. I know how long it's going to take. I have a pretty good idea of how long it's going to take, and that's my estimate. Estimates are estimates. But I work my way through, and again, that's where I have the retrospective at the end of the day and say, well, despite my best efforts, gosh, there's still some things I didn't get done. How come? And I don't beat myself up over it, but I try to learn from what worked well, what can I do differently the next day, and ask myself some of those more all-important questions of, gosh, does this task really need to be done? Is there a way I can break it into something even smaller? And do I need to do this? Is this something that somebody else can help with? So it gives us those opportunities to really review the work that we have and to best identify that, to enable us to start the work and get it done.
All right. Great response there from you, Helene. So,
Mhm.
for the listener who is staring at a mile-long to-do list at the moment, feeling paralyzed and ready to give up on the day. So, what's the first smallest step they can take to break that paralysis?
Yes, and that was one of those biggest challenges that I had struggled with and would do the same for me, would have me feel so overwhelmed looking at this large to-do list. And a lot of those early techniques that I was trying, and even some of the current ones, even using electronic tools, you put everything in this big to-do column and it's overwhelming, right? Having everything in one big to-do list, it just feels like you'll never get it all done. So exactly my technique is, along with breaking the work down into smaller components, I actually have people plan out their week day by day. It's kind of like a calendaring approach. I actually get a Monday sheet out and I look at what am I going to do on Monday? And that's when I start my week and I start putting all my little sticky notes on for Monday. Then I have Tuesday and I'll pre-plan. Well, that I don't need to get done until later in the week so I can start it on Tuesday. And what's Wednesday look like? What about Thursday? What about Friday? So I start to plan out and I take all this work that needs to get done this week and kind of do an initial draft plan of it. And I then have a weekend because my weekends can be busy. And a lot of us have busy weekends too, especially if you have children. You're running around taking them to all of their events and play dates and the like. So weekends can be busy. So I've got a day for each, a sheet for every day. And then I have a sheet called my backlog. And that's for all the things that I'm not getting done this week. So that's where the really big list, the really big to-do list, winds up living in the backlog. And I only look at that now kind of once a week when I'm beginning to plan out the week. So now I don't have this big list in front of me. I have a sheet of paper. This is why it's a stupidly simple process that I have. And I have a sheet of paper for each day of the week. So I have Monday, and actually today's Tuesday that we're recording this. So I have Tuesday's sheet right in front of me with all of my sticky notes of what needs to get done today. And that's all I'm looking at. And that helps my overwhelm immensely because what I have here is something that I feel I can get done today. Am I worried about the things that are due later in the week? Not really, because I know I have them planned. If I really want to look at it, I can literally move a sheet of paper and look at the next day and the next day. But having that focus of what do I need to do today up front and on the top of my desk, looking at me and letting me know that that's my focus today, not that rest of that big to-do list is so, so helpful. And that's what I hear from so many people, that you get rid of that big to-do list staring at you that is part of that overwhelm and part of that procrastination of, I don't know where to get started. There's so much here. If it doesn't have to get done today, if it doesn't have to get done this week, put it in the backlog. Stop thinking about it. And that's my approach that helps us get on top of our work and feel far less stressed.
All right. Thank you very much for that. So, so after 40 years in the industry and mastering the art of getting things done without the stress, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you now?
That's a great question. Um, and I think success is so defined personally, right? Are you enjoying your life? Do you feel you have time to do what you want to do? Do you have time to, for me, you heard I have a granddaughter and I actually have 3 grandchildren. So do I have time to spend with the grandchildren? And for me, yes, that's a sign of success that I can get the work done that I need to get done in the time I've got allocated for it. I still have time to spend with the family. I'm not living under the constant stress. And I feel, as a result, I feel good about myself. I am a good person. I get things done, right? I have successes along the way. And that's part of me feeling just an overall sense of success, that I'm living the life that I would like, right? And I'm not feeling that I'm being drowned by or overwhelmed by outside demands. So for me, that's success. It's a great question.
Wow, that was a really interesting response, Helene. So finally, for our listeners who want to get your book or watch your tutorial, so where is the best place for them to go?
So the book is available. The book is called The Art of Agile Living, and it's available on Amazon. There is a website, artofagileliving.com, which is also a great place to go and get information on the book. It will get you to that Amazon link as well and point you to what my company, A2 Agile, also provides, and a way to connect up with me if you would like. I'm always happy to answer any questions people have on using the techniques because I'm passionate about helping people get stuff done and have that be their superpower now as well.
Great, great one, dear Helen. This has been a really practical and helpful conversation, and I am truly excited to have you on the show today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I don't know if any of this is visual, but I've got on my screen what the book looks like. So if there's a visual component of this, I encourage you to try to go find the book on Amazon and download it today.